Welcome back to a brand new episode of Mastering Programming. In today's episode, we'll be creating a very simple app which uses a timer to start incrementing on this label. We can also pause the timer and reset the timer back to 0. Now, let's go ahead and get started. So I created an object here called our timer, and I gave that a value of timer. Now, you'll see how we can use that right now. I also created another object and gave it a value integer of 0. Let's go ahead after this step, after you created both those objects, and actually add those objects into our view controller file, Swift file. So I'm going to go ahead and press on control, then drag and drop this over here, and I want it to be an action because it's a button, and I'm going to call it start button, just like this. I'm going to do the same thing for pause. Let's call it pause button. Reset, same thing, you guessed it, reset button. Next, after we created all our buttons, we're going to also drag and drop our label so we can actually update it. And this one you can leave as outlet, and I'm going to call it, let's just call it label connect, just like this. All right, so let's go ahead and actually create our timer. So I'm gonna come before the override function. You can do it anyway, but I usually like to keep things clean. I'm gonna expand this, and I'm gonna go ahead and create the function which will allow us to actually use a timer. So I'm going to go ahead and actually come under the start button. And inside of here, I'm going to say timer is equal, I'm going to say our timer is equal to timer. And you can say dot scheduled and select the first one, or for me, it's the first one. You need to select the one with the selector and user info. Let's go ahead, and for our time interval, it's the number of times you want this to be repeated. So if we're going to go ahead and put 1 here, this action is going to be repeated once every second. It's going to be repeated every second. If you put 10 inside of here, it's going to be repeated every 10 seconds. Our target is going to be self, our selector. For now, put action just right here, but note that this is going to give you an error, and I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. User info, we don't have any, so we're just going to say nil. And for repeats, I want this to repeat, and I'm going to put true. If I have put false here, it's this action or this timer is going to start in 10 seconds and then stop. But if you put true, it's going to keep repeating every 10 seconds or every 1 second in our case. After that, let's go ahead and actually create the function that I was talking about. And let's call this at object. Okay, so this might be a little bit different on how you usually create functions, and that's because we want this function to be an Objective-C function. Anyway, we're going to say func, and I'm going to call it action, just like this. I'm going to actually declare it correctly. And inside of here, all we're going to do is we're going to be adding 1 to our timer displayed. So I'm going to go ahead and say timer displayed plus equal to 1. And that means that every second after the person presses on the start button, we're going to be adding 1 every single second to our timer displayed. It's saying expect, there we go, this should be okay. Now let's go ahead and actually fix this. So I'm gonna remove this, and I'm going to say hashtag select, and it should complete it. And I'm going to select that first one. Inside of here, I'm actually going to pass the name of our function. So I'm just gonna copy and paste this, and you should see that we no longer have any errors. Now let's, inside of our action, after we actually added 1, we want to actually display it. So we are going to be giving the value of our label the value of our timer displayed, or the object code timer displayed. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say label dot text is equal to string, because remember we're storing an integer here, but text is always string. So I'm just going to say string timer displayed. Let's just save this and run it to see what's going to happen. So I'm just going to run it, and I have the simulator ready. And if I press on start, this should start adding. There we go. Every single second, the label should change. But if I press on pause and reset, obviously nothing is going to happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause this. And now let's work on our pause and start methods. Let's go to the pause button. And inside of here, all I'm going to do is simply say our timer, which is the name of our timer. Remember, we declared it over here. And I'm going to say invalidate. And now when someone presses on the pause button, the timer is going to stop. What happens if someone wants to reset it? Well, all we need to do is simply come to the reset button and we're going to say timer.invalidate. So first we stop it. Oh, sorry, I forgot that we didn't call it timer. Our timer.invalidate. And after we pause it, we want the timer displayed to go back to a value of 0. So I'm going to go ahead and say timer displayed is equal to 0. And then after that, because after that, although the timer is now equal to 0, we want the label to also go back to 0. So I'm just going to say label.text is equal to 0. Let's save this, run it, and see what's going to happen. So let's press start and wait until it hits 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5. I paused it, and as you can see, it's no longer running. If I wanted to continue, I can press start, and this should continue. 6, and let's wait until it goes to 8. Pause, and let's reset. And as you can see, this works straight away. Even if you actually press start, and let's say you want to reset it here, you don't have to press pause first. You can just go ahead and press reset, and it will reset straight away. So this was actually it for this episode. Thank you for watching. I know it got a little bit messy with all the code and stuff, but I hope I did a good job. Thank you for watching and have a good day.